Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear conference participants. Good evening, dear friends of the Karlsruhe Dialogue. I would like to welcome all of you most warmly tonight here at the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Karlsruhe Dialogue. No matter whether it's an anniversary or not, it's most important to have you here, dear audience, because even this year you have come here in large numbers for the first time here to the Wolfgang-Rihm-Forum in the Gottes Hour, because our former rooms have just become too small, and that speaks in favor of this event. The consistent interest in the topics which we are discussing each and every year within the scope of our Cultural Dialogue is a very positive thing, and of course this positive resonance is balm on the soul of every host and also balm for the social foundation of the Sparda-Bank Baden-Württemberg as a major support of the Karlsruhe Dialogue. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are not the only promoter of these Karlsruhe Dialogues. We look back to long-standing cooperation with many partners, and I'm very happy about that. And our other supporters will certainly also be happy about your attendance. Let me thank Mr. Thomas Schmid from ART, our media partner, and Mr. Lan Linders for the Baden State Theatre of Karlsruhe. And of course, you can give them a hand of applause, if you don't mind. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last year we celebrated the 300th anniversary of Karlsruhe. You might think it was yesterday, and even this year in 2016, many events will take place in Karlsruhe, dear Lord Mayor Dr. Mentrup, and so this atmosphere of a head start is carried on all the while. So let me thank you also very much for coming, and we're also looking forward to your welcome address. And if a mayor doesn't come alone but brings along town councillors, this is a good signal too. So let me welcome the city councillors Tom Hoyen, Eduardo Musuto and Michael C. And it fits to the topic of this event to have the ambassador from Armenia, Mr. Robert Huber, with us, also most welcome. Our slogan is no KIT, no ZAG, without ZAG, no Cultural Dialogue. We couldn't have a better slogan. And it's good to have the kit and the ZAG around, and you're very well organizing our event, and you have done so for 20 years, which is another anniversary. Most welcome, Dr. Breuer, Vice President of the KIT, and you will also give us your welcome address in a minute. Since I've just mentioned the ZAG, most welcome to you, dear Professor Robertson von Trotha. I think it was a big recognition in advance for the statement I want to make now, because it's just fantastic the way in which you find the right topic each and every year. No one could outdo you. And in the light of the ongoing negotiations, and I've just heard about them in the radio, these talks have been prolonged even. So congratulations for your selection of these topics and for the 20th anniversary of the Karlsruhe Dialogue, dear Professor Robertson von Trotha. The Karlsruhe Dialogue want to draw attention, they want to give food for thought and trigger things, and thus a transfer into the public is helpful. So most welcome to the representatives of the media, the press, radio and TV stations. We are very happy about your reports throughout these 3 days, because these safeguards this kind of transfer to the public. And I'm sure that it's worthwhile following this event, because once again, Ms. Robertson, together with her team, has selected a thrilling subject matter. And thank you very much for the preparation of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about the fate of Europe, so to say, kind of a be or not to be situation, because the time is out of balance. And as in the past, Hamlet will also have to deal with a spectre, the nation Europe, so to say. Can it be or can it not be? That's the question. And even for us here in Baden-Württemberg, this issue is of a lot of interest because geographically we find ourselves in the midst of Europe and we are a very successful federal state exporting state in Europe. So let me also welcome Mr. Jung, the head of the representation of the federal state of Baden-Württemberg to the European Union. Most welcome. Well, we couldn't have found a better topic for this year, and of course, the welcome address will be given by Professor Dr. Anthony Glies, who is certainly the best one to have this challenging task tonight. And, well, Professor Anthony Glies, we are very happy to have you here tonight, dedicating yourself to this topic. And on a very topical note, I'm interested in your viewpoint at our ambitions and the viewpoints of Great Britain. Most welcome, Professor Glies. Let me also welcome all the other national and international lecturers in this context. And, well, maybe we should give another hand of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of fact, time is out of whack, out of balance. Wherever we look, we only see crises. The finance crisis, the Greece crisis, the Euro crisis, Ukraine crisis, the debt crisis, and now the refugee crisis. And before only one can wane and die down, the next one is rolling to us, even of larger dimension than all the others before, the EU crisis. If we take the EU Council President Donald Tusk literally, then in the case of the European Union, well, the situation, the crisis will be over in a few months' time. This crisis of refugees, or maybe it's the end of the European Union. I hope he said it in the heat of passion only, because that end won't come, because for that our European rose is by far too important. To speak freely with the fox from the book of the Little Prince, saying the time which we have lost for our rose, it makes us all the more important. And we have invested a lot of time in the realization of the idea of united Europe, and therefore its maintenance is all the more important despite all the crises. And, well, it's like with the Hollywood stars, when they fall into a personal crisis. That's what crises are there for. Whether it's a peak or a turning point in our development, they can also bring us further on, be it in private or in public life, be it in a household, a company, or a community of states. Well, when I got prepared for this night, I looked it up in an encyclopedia, what the word crisis stands for and where it stems from. And I found out that the words crisis and criticism have the same origin, namely the old Greek verb krinein, which means separating, distinguishing, about, assessing, judging. The old Greek substantive crisis originally means opinion, assessment, a decision, later in the sense a decisive turning point. For criticism, kritike tekne, the art of assessment, as the old Greeks said, are dedicated to these both meanings of the term. One could therefore say crisis and criticism are like twins which want to reach the same thing on the same track. One is a turning point, mostly of an unpleasant development. Hence, the time of crisis is also the time of criticism. That's good like that. Due to this synchronicity, we can spare ourselves from disasters, from developments which, according to the Duden, take a permanently negative course. In a marriage, for example, such a negative course ends in divorce. Two are leaving each other. That's the ultimate turning point. And what such a divorce of the 28 partners in the EU should look like, I cannot imagine. I don't want to imagine. Because times of crisis as such are also good times, because I have all reason to listen to criticism and to take leave from things which don't function anymore, especially from stereotypes, and try something new outside the daily routine of successful years. Thus, you can turn a negative course of development into the right direction and prevent a disaster. And the decision, the divorce of 28 EU partners would be an absolute disaster, in my opinion. The usual conjuring up of solidarity and reason, as well as the trust in the Brussels politics acrobats, don't help to rescue the EU marriage. And the current conflicts cannot be weathered out, as usually, by means of compromises, because the situation is too serious. Because, as a matter of fact, it goes into the belief of the citizens, into the legitimation of the Union, and which need to be renewed with a new spirit and with new imagination. Quite often we don't get over the impression that in the light of this challenge, our routine politicians are asked too much. It seems that they are suffering from a permanent operational blindness, as if they are not able to understand that the forthcoming European crisis is a unique opportunity to their new start. What the EU now needs is a basic reset to become faster and more efficient in the future, more customer-friendly, and therefore more citizen-friendly, like an Apple equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already dared more democracy before, pursuant to Willy Brandt, but now it's decisive to dare something more new. Hence, the new needs friends, as the supercook Remy calls it in his in my most popular movie, Ratatouille. Hence, we need as many friends, or in Apple's words, as many fans in all 28 countries for Europe. So let's become fans of the new Europe, a Europe without borders, without national egotisms, without a big administrative apparatus, and without harsh social disparities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm firmly convinced that this Europe has a future, and there can't be another one. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a lot of pleasure in the 20th Karlsruhe Dialogue.
Mr. Hettich, Professor Dr. Robertson von Trotha, ladies and gentlemen, I will not welcome all important individuals here, because Mr. Hettich already welcomed everybody, and I would like to focus a little bit on some aspects. First of all, on behalf of the city, I'd like to congratulate you. 20 years of Karlsruhe Dialogues, this has become a brand, so to say. It is a gem of political education in our city, and I am quite sure that the willingness to discuss and the acceptance that we saw last year in the pavilion when we celebrated our anniversary, even when the weather was very, very bad, 40 degrees centigrade in summer and frosty temperatures in winter, and we always met in the pavilion. But the Karlsruhe Dialogues have established a culture of discussion over the period of 20 years, and people are always very enthusiastic to take part and try to use this opportunity for further education. And so on behalf of the City Council and also on behalf of Dr. Ludwig, our citizens of honor here, I would like to thank you very much for this great work. In addition to this, it is a great joint venture between science, culture, industry, and politics, because Sparda-Bank and other sponsors made this possible. It developed on the basis of KIT and ZAK. It now takes place in this university for young musical students, and we will hear some of them later on. And many people take this opportunity, and we do not have more mayors here this evening as in the years before. The reason being that, by the way, the Prime Minister is next door tonight, and in the Kunsthalle we have an award ceremony, and we have a French delegation at Arte with some mayor colleagues, because an award of Karlsruhe and of the state of Baden-Württemberg will be given away. So you know what the situation is like on a Friday evening. You would like to have a lot of clones in order to be everywhere at the same time. So I'm so glad that all of you are here, showing that the Karlsruhe Dialogues always have many, many visitors, and I think this is the best present for this birthday, 20 years of Karlsruhe Dialogues. Karlsruhe and Europe, if we put it negatively, we could say for more than 300 years it's a joint venture of fate, but I think it is a true win-win partnership. If you think of history, this city was always well when we had partnership with France, when we exchanged people, when we met with people from France, when we exchanged goods and so on with the Upper Rhine region, and whenever the frontiers were closed because of war, because of differences and problems, the city of Karlsruhe, looking at the population and looking at the economic situation, saw a backwards development. So from the point of view of Karlsruhe, there's no alternative to Europe, and it is unthinkable of falling back into thinking in terms of nation states, because I mean, we go to France to buy fresh cheese every weekend, or when I think of people living in the Alsace region going to work in Karlsruhe every day. I mean, we are so glad that we also have trainees in our companies from the northern Alsace region, and we can help this region on the opposite side of the Rhine, where there is a very high degree of youth unemployment. So it is unthinkable to imagine that I would have to stop at the frontier, show my passport, the car would be searched, and so on. And when I think of the citizens who have become part and parcel of our city for centuries, but because of their looks, because they are people with a migratory background, they may be forced to go through very, very specific checks at the borders. This is something we do not want to think about. And I'm sure that after the Karlsruhe Dialogues, we will have the attitude which is optimistic. We will try, we will continue, we will try to make sure that we work along these lines. And I think this is a very, very important contribution that the Karlsruhe Dialogues can make. But the beginning should be an honest analysis. And wherever you want to reach consent in Germany, it is even more en vogue to talk badly about Europe, to ask, what about the solidarity of Eastern European countries, Great Britain, or other countries? We no longer feel this solidarity in Europe. And I think we, also the Germans, should honestly take stock, because before we can start again working on Europe, we have to be honest enough to admit that the solidarity of German politicians in recent years was not excellent regarding Europe either. I do not want to talk about the financial crisis and banking crisis, where I think we made sure that our economy had the fewest problems and maybe was a winner after the crisis. No, but I would like to take the example of refugees. If for several decades you state that refugees are only an issue for the border states of Europe, and so the integrative power of Germany apparently is not needed to solve this European problem, is really wrong. And the long development in Italy and Greece with the boat refugees, more and more came, and politically it couldn't be handled because we said, well, we have the Dublin Treaty and we don't have to deal with it. So you shouldn't be surprised that now refugees being here, not a lot of countries understand that we say, oh, there are too many and we lose control of it. I think it is very important to go ahead with this honest analysis. We really should go through this honest analysis before we openly approach our European neighbors and say, but now we have to solve the problem jointly. We should no longer be arrogant or be the wise guys. And only if we stop behaving like this, we can approach the other countries. And if we are not honest, we will not be able to pool the power of our neighbors in order to go ahead with an integrative structure and a situation of solidarity for these refugees. And with this small analysis at the end of my presentation, I don't want to overstay my welcome. I'm glad to see you all here. I would like to thank you for the organization, the agenda, and the invitation. And I wish all of us many new aspects and a lot of passion and courage for the future of Europe. Thank you very much.
Dear Lord Mayor, dear Mr. Mentrup, dear Mr. Hettich, Professor Robertson von Trotha, Professor Glies, ladies and gentlemen from near and from afar. You're all here. I cannot see you, though, but at least you can see me. Let me welcome you most cordially on behalf of the Presidium of the Karlsruhe Institute for Technology at the opening of the 20th Karlsruhe Dialogue. As has already been mentioned, it's not promising too much if we say, well, it will become an exciting evening and we'll live to see a few more thrilling days during the Karlsruhe Dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, this very year, even in the year of the anniversary of the Karlsruhe Dialogue, there cannot be any other topic for this event than the one you have chosen, Professor Robertson von Trotha, together with your team of the Center for Applied Cultural Studies. As has already been said, let's be outspoken in saying that the European Union is in deep crisis. Brexit, the refugee crisis, that determines the public debate, but also the problems at the eastern borders of the European Union, the open conflict in the Ukraine, and the return to the Cold War, as the Russian president called it, is being discussed everywhere. If we follow the discussion in the media taking place on the level of the European Union, we keep asking ourselves what has become of our beautiful Europe. No consensus. Each country insists on its own position. Each country wants to secure a maximum advantage for itself. This frustration about the current status of the European Union is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, however, is that the European Union is the greatest story of success on our continent. 60 years EU also means 60 years human rights, freedom, democracy, peace, equal opportunities, and constitutional state and wealth for hundreds of millions of people. Talking about both sides of this coin in our EU is indispensable, and therefore events like the Karlsruhe Dialogue are all the more important. To talk about these topics is good, but acting is even more important. On behalf of the KIT, let me say that we are acting. The KIT, as a large scientific institution in Europe, stands up for the European Union. There are many signs of this. We are networked in the EU through numerous projects with other European partners. As part of the Upper Rhine region, with many students in other European countries and many employees, people writing doctoral theses, young researchers, and so on and so forth. Given the largest challenge of the EU, overcoming the current refugee crisis, we also commit ourselves as much as we can. We support the Central Authority for the Acceptance of Refugees, and this institution is made available for more than 1,200 refugees. Together with the Baden-Württemberg universities and other centers, we have undertaken a lot to integrate refugees. We are offering courses in German for foreigners, internships, traineeships, for vocational training, and a pool of interpreters of 20 languages. Many employees commit themselves personally for these activities, like, for example, running a tea parlor or a clothes shop. And the association in Actors KIT wants to improve the situation of refugees in Germany. Alongside with other activities, the initiative Welcome to Work has been initiated, a job placement platform on the internet especially dedicated to refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, these examples show that we try and live up to our social responsibility. Of course, we cannot resolve the problem ourselves. The solution can only take place at the level of European politics. My personal conviction is we are strong together, and then we'll also make it. At the end, let me also link up with the thanks of the previous speakers. Professor Trotha, I want to thank you for the conception and the scientific management of this event, and the SAC team, which puts together and organizes these talks. And of course also the supporters, Mr. Hettich in the Sparda-Bank, where the SAC has found a partner since 2005 who renders strong support to the Karlsruhe Dialogue together with the city of Karlsruhe. Last but not least, let me also thank all our other partners who find them in the program brochure. Ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you tonight, and of course for the entire weekend, interesting lectures and new crucial information on these important subject matters.